in one section there is Srila Guru Maharaj is quoting the English poet Longfellow.
English poet?
Longfellow. I'm going to put that little quote on the chat so everyone can see it.
All right.
Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present, heart within and God overhead. So we wonder if you can expand on that quote that Guru Maharaj has written here.
Well, it sounds very much like from the quote from where Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, forget the past that sleeps and near the future dream at all, but act in times that are with thee and progress thee shall call. You know that quote, right?
I have heard something, yeah.
Yeah, that's from Vaishnava Sharagrahi, Vaishnava Sharagrahi by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. The march of the Vaishnava soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's from the same poem where he says, the dazzling, deadly liquid forms that draw their heart's embrace, the slaves of wine shall never rise from what we call disgrace. That's another verse from that same poem. You've heard that also, right?
I haven't really heard about that one, Maharaj. Which book is that? I haven't.
It's a poem. It's a poem. Let me see if I can find it and I'll put it here, because that quote you gave me from Longfellow is very much like that. Let me see. Here's the quote I mentioned. Forget the past that sleeps and near the future dream at all. That act in times that are with thee and progress thee shall call. Now give me the quote from Longfellow again.
It's there on the chat.
Okay, but you read it just a minute ago.
No future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present here, heart within and God overhead.
Yeah, I like Bhakti Vinod Thakur's way of saying it better.
Yeah.
But he says something about forgetting the past and let the dead bury the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a little extreme, I guess, but I mean, we're not against burying dead people. I mean, we call it samadhi. But the whole idea of the second chapter is that the soul is living and the soul is eternal. So then there's so many what is it? When Krishna begins his explanation, he says, the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Right? You remember that quote from Bhagavad Gita?
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. Where is trust no future, however dead, let the dead past bury its dead. Okay. The same idea, that the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead, the soul is eternal. And then Bhakti Vinod Thakur saying, what's he say? What was the quote? Now I'm forgetting the very quote I quoted. Let's see. He says, forget the past that sleeps and near the future dream at all, but act in times that are with thee and progress thee shall call. So forget the past that sleeps. In other words, don't live in the past. I hear so many devotees do that. They say, oh, I remember when I was a brahmachari living in the temple. Now they're married and they have 6 kids. They say, I remember when I was a brahmachari living in the temple. That was the happiest time of my life. Maybe so, but it wasn't necessarily the happiest time when you were living it. You're just looking, you're, quote, reliving it, end of quote, but not really reliving it. You're just nostalgically remembering what you liked about it and forgetting everything that you didn't like about it. But perhaps it was the best time of your life, but why don't you create the present in such a way that that will be the best time of your life? Why should you live in the past, and why should you yearn for a future that's not yet established? I mean, anything can happen from the present onward that will change the future that you're so making so many plans, or as they say in English, don't count your chickens before they hatch. So, why should you make plans for the future without knowing that? I mean, I'm not saying that you should not make any adjustments for your future, in the sense that there is the two words that I mentioned once before. One is, let me think what those words are. One is when something you're doing, you're just trying to enjoy the moment right now. You're just looking towards they asked you to admit
Yes.
Okay. All right. So two kinds of enjoyment. One is enjoying the present, and one is just immediate sense gratification. One is, I'm trying to think of those two words. I talked about that once before. Do you remember those words? One is I'm forgetting the terminology. But the one is that you just enjoy what immediately is like happening, like a child wants to run off into the street and enjoy playing in the street, whereas somebody else is not running off and playing in the street, but is actually studying so that they can do well in school, and then they can later go to the college or university they want to. So
no se llama Sreya y Preya, Maharaj.
Shreya and Preyas, yes, correct. That's correct. If you do if you just want to enjoy right now, what immediately is there, that's Preyas. And if you have a higher sense of what your enjoyment will be, that is Shreyas. So sometimes for Shreyas, you can't just like give into immediate sense enjoyment, but you have to practice a little bit of tapasya in order to achieve something higher. So that's one thing. You could say, well, doesn't that contradict the idea of forget the past, asleep, and near the future, dream at all? No, that's not that's not dreaming of the future. That's acting in the present. You're acting in the present for what you consider to be the best course of your actions. So, just like for instance, somebody moves to a new country from their old country, and then they begin to make decisions based on what will enable me to have a good job here and to be able to legitimize my papers and everything like that. I mean, everyone, in one sense or another, is familiar with that, because you can say, well, I'm not familiar with that because I was born in this country. Yes, but you're familiar with that, for instance, when you go to India or when you go to another country, you have to act in that way. So that's not what we mean when we say near the future dream at all. That's acting in the present for establishing a goal that you want to achieve, but it's not a dreamlike goal. It's ultimately practical and it's reality. But Bhakti Vinod Thakur does say to act in the present that is with thee, and progress thee shall call. He's saying that you should live in the present. You shouldn't dwell on the past and just like dream or always have this nostalgia. Is that the right word? Nostalgia for what happened in the past. Oh, those are the best days of my life. And on the other hand, we don't want to just be dreamers that we're dreaming about a future that probably will never happen. Like the idea, there's also the verse, Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha. Atyahara, collecting more than necessary. Or not, you could also say some people, they don't collect anything. They just go into the winter without any firewood, without any heat, without any money to turn on the gas or anything, because they've squandered everything they have. That's one form of stupidity. But another is atyahara, over collecting more than you need, than you need. Or also in the Upadeshamrita, it says, too much endeavor for something entirely mundane. Like, why should you work so hard to achieve some kind of super pleasant, mundane existence? I'm working hard so I can buy a new Mercedes and rent an apartment in the richest area of London. But right now you're living on the street. That's like, why will you engage in this kind of too much endeavor for something mundane? Why don't you, as Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, act in the present? So now let's go back to the Longfellow quote. Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury his dead. That's the same thing, basically, that what Bhakti Vinod Thakur says in a nicer way, and when he says, forget the past that sleeps, and near the future dream it all. And as far as letting the dead let the dead past bury its dead, we're also, we deal with those every time we're dealing with some kind of adjusted Shraddha sacrifice, where we're reading from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and then the Bhagavad Gita in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, well, speaking learned words, you're acting for that which is not worthy of your grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So that's also being said by Longfellow, but in different ways. I prefer Krishna's words in Bhagavad Gita. I prefer Bhakti Vinod Thakur's words in, I'm going to list here in the chat that poem. I think it's Sharan, wait, I'm spelling it wrong. Sharagrahi Vaishnava. I'm putting it with ISKCON spelling. Sharagrahi Vaishnava. You see that? I think that's ISKCON spelling of the words. I mean, this is a very beautiful poem by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. I'm surprised that people aren't familiar with it, because I thought everybody was.
Yeah, it's a very nice. I would like to know exactly where it is. I mean, I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it.
I think with my proper spelling, I'll be able to find it. Sharagrahi Vaishnava. Okay, it says Sharagrahi. Sharagrahi. Here, I'm going to, let's see if I can copy this.
Maharaj, I found something on PrabhupadaConnect.com.
Well, I have it here in a better way. Let me see if I can get this. Let me see. I have it here, and I'm going to put it in the chat as soon as I can get back to here. Let's see. Says the message is too long. You stupid piece of junk program. Why are you like that?
Excuse me, Maharaj, in the that old page of the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math, there is a point called the Jiva soul.
Yeah, that's it, I believe.
I just post the link on the chat.
Does it start with the last for those who spend their days?
Yeah.
Here, I'm putting in the first 10 verses, and then we'll go to here's the first 10 verses. I said it's too long, 10 verses. Okay. Then I'm just going to put in the page reference, and then you can see very nicely. Let's say, here, here's the page. See if you can see this. Can you see that?
Yes,
Yes.
Maharaj.
Okay. Is it the same as a Vaishnav soul or whatever it is in the?
Yes.
Okay. You can Vaishnav soul, but okay, it looks like, yes, better to have it from our own page. There it is. The Jiva soul. Yeah. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, I've kind of given some idea from the Longfellow about the Longfellow poem. We wouldn't be able to probably include the Longfellow poem here either. We need the Shortfellow poem. All right. So what's the next question from
Anonymous.
Anonymous?
The next question is about Madhya Lila chapter 19, Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Okay.
It's about the Bhakti Lata Bija. The
The
creeper
Bhakti. Okay. Bhakti Lata Beach.
and the mad elephant. This is a question from the Anonymous. It is
Manta Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Beach.
mhm.
Well, okay, so what's the question?
The question is about the mad elephant representing the offenses to a Vaishnava, and how
Yes.
can we avoid or can we proceed after making an offense to the Vaishnavas? Not very clear the question, but that's what the Anonymous have.
Okay, now, first of all, considering the offense to a Vaishnava, because it is true that nothing can really stunt or spiritual advancement except an offense to the Vaishnava. But then we should understand what it means, a mad elephant offense, because first of all, the example of a mad elephant is the Bhakti Lata Bij. First of all, understand the analogy of the Bhakti Lata Bij. Ramanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. And when Ramanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jeev, when you actually become fortunate, Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai, by the mercy of Krishna, you get a spiritual master, or you actually meet with the real Vaishnava and accept initiation from that Vaishnava. Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai, by the mercy of the Lord, you get contact with your spiritual master, and Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. And by the spiritual master's mercy, you get the seed of devotional service. It's called Bhakti Lata Bij, the seed that you sow in your heart, and which is sown in your heart. And then by the chanting of the holy name and service, everything, that seed sprouts, and it begins to grow. And in its fully mature stage, it takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord like a creeper. And then one can receive fruit of love of Godhead, which one can taste and savor. Even in this world, even in this material world, one can get that fruit of love of Godhead that's produced by the Bhakti Lata Bij, by that creeper. It's actually the Bhakti Lata Bij. Bhakti Lata, Bij means the seed or the sprout. And the Bhakti Lata is a creeper. Lata is a creeper. So that creeper takes shelter of the Lord like a creeper, like a vine, and grows and receives so much, strength by taking. It's a Bhakti Lata, and it's growing. It takes shelter of the Lord, and there it gets so much strength. So when the seed is just beginning to grow, it's called a sprout. Just like here and also in London, you eat so many different kinds of sprouts. You eat like alfalfa sprouts, and you eat mung bean sprouts, and you eat what other kinds of sprouts? So many kinds of sprouts, right? And Saraswati, what are some of the kinds of sprouts you eat?
I don't really eat any of those sprouts. It's not really recommended to eat the sprouts.
Why?
I heard the Guru Maharaj didn't agree with that.
All right. Well, anyway, I think sometimes things are misunderstood about certain, but you may be completely right. But I remember like Srila Prabhupada, he liked Ayurvedic medicine, but he didn't like homeopathic medicine.
Mm.
And Srila Guru Maharaj liked homeopathic medicine. So they weren't necessarily in agreement about what kind of medicine they liked. And a particular Vaishnava, like Govinda Maharaj, liked muri, and Prabhupada called it cheating the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not in things that are not necessarily considerations of what we have to like or not like. I mean, somebody may like Shukta like me, and other persons may not like it at all. So there's differences of opinion, but this is not a question of really what is actually an essential point of Vaishnavism. But anyway, I don't need to know what kind of sprouts people eat. And the idea is when the seed is sprouting, when the seed sprout first comes out, it's its most tender position. Like that sprout, if it's broken, the plant will never grow. That sprout can grow to be a very great plant, like the seed of a banyan tree. When it comes, it might come out as a sprout. It's just the seed is first sprouting, it's first starting to grow. But like a baby is in a very defenseless position. So when our Bhakti Lata Bij is first growing, we have to be very careful, because just like in a garden, if we talk about the mad elephant offense, if an elephant gets in the garden, it'll destroy all the plants. It will destroy everything. And our Bhakti Lata Bij, as we already said, when we're first starting, that Bhakti Lata Bij is first growing, it's first developing. Like there was a conversation where someone said to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they said, can you tell me what my Siddha Deho is? What is my spiritual body? What am I in the spiritual world? And Srila Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he said, if you show it to me, I can tell you. Meaning you haven't even developed it yet, and you're asking me what it is. First develop first you grow spiritually, then we can tell you what you will be, or what is your future in this spiritual world. But right now you're in the stage where at best you're just in the sprout stages, like a so somebody can say, well, you can say the sex of the baby even in the womb. Okay, but that's not what we're not talking about a baby. Here we're talking about a Bhakti Lata Bij that can, this sprouting, growing lata of devotional service. It hasn't even grown yet. And if into your garden where you have so many nice things planted, if an elephant gets in there, especially a mad elephant, what is a mad elephant? A mad elephant means that an angry elephant. If a mad angry elephant offense or mad elephant offense, an offense to the Vaishnava. And I will say what makes it especially a mad elephant offense, it's not done innocently. It's not that you made an offense to a Vaishnava innocently. What makes it a mad elephant offense is it's done calculatingly and it's done deliberately. So one should be very careful about one's dealings with other Vaishnavas, because just like, can I give you an example of of an offense that was deliberate and calculated? Yes. Like for instance, between Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj. Durvasa Muni, he let's see, what was the condition that created him to become so offensive towards Ambarish Maharaj? That Ambarish, can you recreate that incident, Saraswati? What did Ambarish Maharaj do that offended Durvasa Muni so much?
I can't remember. Maybe Nitai remembers.
Maybe it was that maybe Ambarish Maharaj, let's see, I thought it was something maybe to do with a fast and not serving Durvasa Muni. Let's see. Oh, Ambarish Maharaj was observing a fast, and let's see. says, when Durvasa Muni arrived, appeared on the scene. After standing up to receive him, King Ambarish offered him a nice seat and humbly requested him to dine. Durvasa gladly accepted, but first he wanted to bathe in the river Jamuna. There he waded into the river and became absorbed in trance. Meanwhile, only a few minutes remained before the auspicious time for Ambarish Maharaj to break his fast. He was fasting. The king became anxious. On the one hand, he knew that if he didn't break his fast during the prescribed period, the vow's effects would be lost. But on the other hand, he also knew he would commit a great offense if he ate before Durvasa returned. To resolve this dilemma, King Ambarish quickly consulted his learned Brahmin advisors and reached a decision. He would break his fast by drinking a little water only, since drinking water may be accepted as both eating and not eating. After sipping some water, the king meditated on the Supreme Lord within his heart and awaited Durvasa Muni's return. When Durvasa returned from the river, he could understand by his mystic powers that King Ambarish had drunk water without his permission. Hungry and trembling in anger, Durvasa Muni chastised the king, who stood before him with folded hands. You have invited me to eat as a guest, but instead of feeding me, you yourself have eaten first. Because of your misbehavior, I shall create something to punish you. Durvasa uprooted a tuft of hair from his head and created a demon resembling the blazing fire of devastation. That frightened creature carried a trident in his hand, and now he was coming before the king to kill him. But King Ambarish remained supremely placid and did not move him, and he was totally and then the Lord Sudarshan Chakra killed the demon that Durvasa Muni created, and then that Sudarshana Chakra followed Durvasa Muni until he asked the Lord for protection, and then the Lord said, "You haven't really offended me, you've offended my Vaishnava." And the Sudarshan Chakra is acting out of his own accord, so you have to beg the favor of the Vaishnava, not of me. Then Durvasa Muni begged protection from Ambarish Maharaj, although Ambarish Maharaj, apparently he's a Grihasta, and Durvasa Muni is a great yogi, a Muni and everything. He should be more powerful, but Durvasa Muni, the important point is why I say this is the kind of offense that could be a mad elephant offense, is because he did this deliberately. It was calculating. It was done to offend the Vaishnava. It wasn't done by accident. What Durvasa Muni did, he deliberately wanted to kill Maharaj Ambarish. He wanted to kill the Vaishnava. So obviously this is deliberate offense. So that's the worst kind. That will become mad elephant offense in the sense that I am deliberately, by my anger or by my bad will, I am trying to offend the Vaishnava. It is not some accident. It's not like by accident I was serving the Vaishnavas and then I accidentally dropped something and it fell onto the clothes of the Vaishnava. And then I begged forgiveness from the Vaishnava and I said, please let me clean this or something. You know, sometimes accidents will happen. But I wouldn't call that a Vaishnava aparad if it's just done by accident. But here we also have to see that we have to be very careful because Vaishnavas may include also children. We don't want to make offenses to children even. Anyone who is a Vaishnava, we don't want to offend them. But sometimes offenses happen by accident. Somebody unknowingly offends someone just by accident. So then if that happens and you become aware of that, then you should beg forgiveness from the Vaishnava. Oh, I didn't mean to offend you. But then what if the offense was done deliberately because you didn't like that person? You didn't like that person, even though the person's a Vaishnava, you didn't like that person. Maybe something happened and that you didn't like that person, and then you deliberately tried to make offenses to that person. So the only thing that can really stop our spiritual advancement is the Vaishnava aparad. That's the only thing that really can stop our spiritual. And the example of the Bhakti Lata Bij is very important, because that is when one is just, one just beginning with devotional service. And we can say relatively, we may think of ourselves as I'm just beginning my devotional service, whoever I am, I just, by the mercy of the Lord, I got contact with my spiritual master. And now by the mercy of my spiritual master, I'm engaged in devotional service. And so I have this, my Bhakti Lata Bij. Bij means seed. It is just sprouting. It's just growing. And the worst thing I can do is when I have this garden with so many tender plants in it, that an angry elephant will come into that garden and just destroy everything. And that angry elephant, that mad elephant offense, is compared to Vaishnava aparad. And especially if it's done deliberately. If you've gone out of your way to offend the Vaishnava. Why did you do that? I didn't like that person. Oh, you should be very careful. How come? Oh, it says I get the message that I could admit the person also.
You are co-host also, Maharaj.
Okay, so who is that I just admitted?
Satyabama.
Satyabama from Mexico or from?
I don't know where this Satyabama is.
Sí, Maharaj Dandavats from Mexico.
Mexico, okay.
From Russia. She's not Mexican at all. She's Russian. And who's that? Nitai Chand. Where's Nitai Chand?
Hare Krishna, Dandavats, pranams, Maharaj. How are you?
Oh, you're looking so old now.
Yes, I'm turning into my father every day.
Yeah, you've lost your hair and now you've got a beard.
Yeah. That's one thing I need to maybe lose, huh?
And that's Maharaj.
Maybe shave.
Yeah, but how old? Okay. How old are your kids?
Amal just turned 3 recently. This is Nalini.
Dandavats Maharaj.
She is, how old are you?
13.
30. Yeah, I knew that.
I don't no. I only ask little kids their age. I don't ask ladies their age.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Maharaj, that's my fault.
Yeah, be careful. Because Srila Govinda Maharaj told me never ask a lady her age. So I don't ask any ladies her age. Okay. And even though she's young, but all right, I'm just saying now you have a family and now you're older, right?
Yes.
But anyway, it's nice to see both of you. Karuna.
That's Maharaj.
Nice to be seen by you, Maharaj.
It's good that you're here. So many Zooms, I didn't get to see you. Then when I saw you, I didn't even recognize you.
Yeah, I have to shave the beard off, huh? I don't think it's I don't know. Maybe it's better to shave it off, so it'll be more clean or something.
I don't know. That's your decision. But there's one devotee here who's from Brazil. His name Murari Krishna. He's not in the Zoom. He's from Brazil, and he had a goatee, but it was all white hair. At least your beard is not white hair. I told him your white-haired goatee makes you look so old, and he got so get rid of it, and then he got rid of it, and then he looks much younger.
Yeah. Maharaj, I had a quick question.
How old is Sham? What's Sham's full name?
Sham Krishna.
Sham Krishna. How old is he?
Yeah, he's
16.
16 now, Maharaj.
And he's very big, huh?
Yeah.
He's very big, yeah. Yeah.
What I liked about him is I was told he was protecting all the younger Vaishnavas.
Yeah, it's quite protective.
I think he's a very good, as they would say in England, he's a very good chap, right? He's a very good person, I think. Sham Krishna.
Yeah, he's got a good heart.
Yeah. Nice. And what is
It's do you mean Nalini Priya? Nalini Priya?
Nalini Priya?
Is that what you
who I just met?
Yeah, that's Nalini Priya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Nalini Priya. She's very pretty. She's nice.
Yeah, we just did like a little offering and a puja. We're doing Gora Arti just before the Zoom call. That's why we came a little bit late.
Okay, so you have a question?
Yeah, it was just a quick question, Maharaj. Because I know by the time I get to Zoom meetings, I just forget what I was going to ask. But I've, by the grace of the Lord, I've remembered. My question was, if you're doing a particular devotional service and you feel like there's some pride coming from that, should you stop doing that? Like some pride, like some false ego coming to you because you maybe you're like good at what you do, or maybe you've been doing it for some time, or you're getting expert at whatever you're doing, and perhaps you feel like that's also not good because you can see that in yourself. What do you suggest, Marge? Should you stop doing that devotional service and do some other devotional service, or?
No, I wouldn't stop doing that devotional service, especially if you're getting good at it. But the consideration should be whether that devotional service that you're doing, is it actually desired by Gurudev and the Vaishnavas? Yeah. And if it is, if you're really good at it and it's pleasing to others, you should continue doing it. We're told that we should not be attached to the results of what we're doing, but we always are attached in some way to the results, because, for instance, if we're trying to do something, for instance, suppose you go out collecting with the devotees, and when you go out to collect, you do very well. Everyone is giving you, and you become, for that night, you're the greatest collector of the night, and everybody's very happy with you, and then you feel very good, and you're attached to the results then. But then you go out another night and nobody wants to give you anything, and you feel very bad because you come back to the temple with almost nothing. So you could say, when people were giving me so much, I was happy, and when people didn't give me anything, I became very sad. So you could say, I'm just attached to the results, and maybe you are attached to the results, but that's not what decides whether we should do the service or not. What should decide whether we do the service or not is whether it's pleasing to Gurudev and the Vaishnavas.
Yeah.
And, or you can say, well, I don't know if it's pleasing to Gurudev and the Vaishnavas because it's not being done in that way. Well, you can still say, is what I'm doing, you can say, does it have importance for others? Does it have importance for Karuna Sundari? Does it have importance for your kids? Does it have importance for your friends? And even though you may be becoming proud, if they're pleased by what you're doing, then you should continue to do it. Maybe then somebody needs to tell you, please don't be so proud about this. Don't get so puffed up. Don't get so puffed up about this. Or maybe you have to tell yourself that. Don't become so puffed up by doing this. Don't become so proud. But if it's a good service, if it's something that you're doing that's important, you should continue doing it. Because otherwise you may not develop anything that you can really do well.
Yes, Maharaj. No.
Is this answer okay? Is this answer okay?
Yeah,
for you?
yeah, no, yeah, it's very, very nice and very meaningful, very meaningful, and yeah,
Because
definitely.
all of us may become a little proud if we do something well. So, okay. But then also you maybe look around, you may find some examples of other people who do it better than you. So then so the idea is then you see somebody who is doing it better than you, but don't become envious of them. But you may become competitive with them. You may compete with them. You may say, oh, this person's really doing fantastic, and I wish I could, and I want to do better than that person. So that's good, because that competition is good. And you say, I'm doing this well, but that person's doing this better than me. Then I want to compete with that person. Okay, that competition is good. But if you say, that person, I'm doing well, but that person's doing better than me, but that person's really a jerk. That person's really, really is really stupid and does, don't become envious of people. Just compete with them, but don't become envious. It's better if you say, oh, that person's doing very good, and I think that person's really wonderful, but I want to compete with that person. I want to do better than. Competition's okay, but envy is okay. Anyway, good to see you. Good to see Karuna. Who else is in the house? And I don't have to see them, but who else lives with you?
So just at the moment, it's Nalini and Amal. It's the four of us. But
do you have any other elder? I mean, you have Sham.
No, he's unfortunately he's not staying with us at the moment.
But he's the eldest, right?
Yeah, he's the eldest, yeah.
And then Lini's the next.
Yes.
And then Amal.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, happy to see you.
Happy to see you, Maharaj.
Okay, I'm going to go back to answering the other questions that have come from, I think, Anonymous. Although I don't know who Anonymous is. I don't think I've ever met Anonymous. Saraswati.
Yes.
So, any more questions?
No, I don't have any more questions. But that was very, very nice, Maharaj, to see that poem again of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Yeah, you've seen it before, I'm sure.
I've seen, but I kind of forgot about that one.
Yeah, I like it more than Longfellow's poem, but Longfellow's poem reminds me of this.
Yeah. Maybe someone else has a question in the.
But Longfellow says, "Let the dead bury what does he say about the past? He says, let the dead past bury its dead. Okay, he doesn't say let the dead bury the dead. That would be kind of strange. But he says let the dead past bury its dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many things that have happened in one's life that, you know. Anyway, what were you saying, Saraswati?
No, I was saying if anybody else in the audience have any question, any question.
Is Falguni still here?
No, Maharaj, yes.
Do you or Gaurachandra have a question?
I don't have a question at the moment. It's a beautiful point to digest.
All right. And Gaurachandra. Oh, Gaurachandra.
Yes, Maharaj. How are you?
I'm well. Do you have any questions?
You were mentioning about offenses, and I have been thinking about this for some time, and I was wondering what is the situation if we commit offenses without even knowing? They are not how do you say on purpose, like you were mentioning before, but sometimes due to our own bad karma, we make some bad association or some misguided association, even in the name of religion, and then we might get deviated without even know it, and we commit offenses, of course, even if we don't think that we are making offenses.
Well, I don't know if that will deviate us, but it will. It's kind of sad that sometimes we can make offenses without even knowing them, and sometimes that's done because we say something wrong and we don't even know that we said something wrong. And one of the reasons that can happen is sometimes we try to correct other persons, and it's maybe not our position to correct other persons. Like there's an old English saying that says, spare the rod and spoil the child. You know, means you have to teach your children, or you have to teach those who are dependent on you how to grow up and how to be good in life. But the way it's stated is not very good. Spare the rod means that you have to whip the person with a rod or something. That'll get you in jail in modern society. So we're not trying to whip anybody. And I saw one time in sports when one man was a sports person. He was a star football player, and then he was married to a woman who wasn't originally his wife, and then he punished the child by hitting the child with a tree branch, because they used to do that, and that's how he was corrected when he was a child, and that landed him in a lot of trouble. He was suspended from playing football for a year or something, and a lot of trouble happened like that. So the idea of hitting people to teach them is not a good idea. Like your own children, some people think, well, that person needs a good spanking. You should be very careful with that, because that's not very much accepted in modern society. It's not a question of being politically correct. It's just a question of that may not be so acceptable by anyone. And then the idea also comes that aside from your own children, you know, who you have to teach, that's your responsibility as a father or mother, but correcting other people, you got to be very careful of that, because, for instance, there's a saying, if I wanted your advice, I would have asked for it. So sometimes we try to give advice and it's not wanted at all. And maybe even what we say is very offensive to the person. You know, like you might say to a friend, you might say something like, if I had a son who acted like your son, I would throw him out of the house. And that person may become very offended by what you say. Like, I didn't ask him to tell me that I should throw my son out of the house. And I find that very offensive, really annoying. I don't want to be that person's friend anymore. I don't want anything to do with it. You know, somebody may react in that way. So one should be very careful, and especially in correcting others. Even if someone's a guru or a spiritual master, one should be careful in how one corrects one's own disciple. I mean, you have to be very careful. Your intentions may be very good, but what you say or do in relation with other persons, unknowingly, as you say, you may commit some offense. And the result may be that they just don't want anything to do with you in the future. Or they may become very offended, and then you may feel, I've committed some Vaishnava aparad. So the second part of Anonymous's question was, if you've committed an aparad, what can you do? And the answer, I would say, is to beg the forgiveness of the Vaishnava, that I've committed some offense and I beg your forgiveness. But if you don't even know that you've committed an offense, how can you beg forgiveness? Because you don't know what you've done wrong, but maybe that person's whole relationship or attitude towards you will now change, that they feel very offended by what you said. And I see that happen a lot, because sometimes people carry great misconceptions with them about maybe even what they learned. For instance, when they were young, they were taught wrongly, even when they were young. Even if they were young devotees, they were taught wrongly. They had a teacher, but their teacher was a complete fool and taught them many things wrong. For instance, some people quoted a saying, they say, well, one should beat a mridanga and one's wife. I've heard that people say that. And if somebody says that, I would say, I want to beat you. I'm an old man. I can't beat you. But if you have that feeling that it's only correct to beat a mridanga and your wife, I would say, then you should be beaten. It's you who should be beaten. And then somebody could say, well, what's wrong with that? And I remember one time I said to one devotee, I told her that something I read from Chanakya Pandit. Chanakya Pandit had said that 1,000 mustaches could live under one roof, but not 4 breasts. And I said that, and one person told me, that is so sexist. That is the most sexist thing I have heard. So somebody can say, well, I'm quoting Chanakya Pandit. Yeah, but maybe some people will not, Chanakya Pandit said many wise things, and maybe what he said is true, but Guru Maharaj said, what did he say? Speak the truth that does not cause harm, right? You've heard that? Speak the truth that does not cause harm. And he says above truth is beauty, charm, mercy, affection, love. All these things are high truths, but truth may be like truth. He said, Guru Maharaj said, truth may be in the side. There's mercy and justice, and truth may be in the category of justice, but we're more interested in mercy and beauty and charm and love and like that. So then there's also the saying, speak the truth that does not harm. And one has to consider that very carefully. Like, for instance, if I'll give you an example. Some woman says, she says, do you like the color of my hair? Maybe she just dyed her hair. And if you say, no, I think that color is very ugly, it makes you look terrible. If you say that, when she asked you, what do you think of the color of my hair? She didn't really want you to give an objective opinion. She wanted you to say, oh, it looks very nice. Or even if you don't think it looks very nice, you can say, oh, I like it. Why? Because you don't want to I don't want to damage somebody. I don't want to damage somebody. When they ask me, what do you think of this? They don't really want you to say, oh, I think it looks ugly, I don't like it. They want you to, they're looking for some encouragement. Oh, I think it's very nice. So then it said, Guru Maharaj says, speak the truth that does not harm. Does that mean there's something, then Guru Maharaj says, does that mean there's something higher than the truth? And he says, yes, there is something higher than the truth. Then what's higher than the truth? Beauty, love, affection, mercy. Mercy is higher than justice. So, you've done something wrong and now you deserve to be killed for what you've done. No, higher than that kind of feeling. Like when the Queen of England first took office, she forgave so many persons who were going to be punished. And she said, I want my first action to be that of mercy. I don't want it to be an act of justice, something to that effect. So you get the idea. You have to be careful in speaking with others. And like what I can say, oh, that was just what Chanaka Pandit said. And somebody can say, no, that was very sexist. And I find it very offensive. And I don't like that you said that. And that makes me not want to be around you. That can be the reaction, right? You can think, oh, I didn't mean it to be bad. Well, you have to be very careful in what you say to others. Sometimes people are very sensitive, and rightly so, because sometimes people may be very sensitive, but I may be very insensitive. And sometimes I'm like that, and it can cause harm. For instance, if somebody is like a sannyasi or a guru or something like that, and they criticize someone, especially somebody who's new or somebody who's young, it can be just like a safe falling on that person from the 12th story. It just crushes them. Whereas somebody else, if it was some one of their friends who said that, they might just react by saying, oh, you're such a jerk, I don't want, go away. But if they ask somebody, it's like if a parent is very severe with a child, that child may never recover from that. All his father could ever do is say mean things to him. Oh, you're a weak little sniveling, effeminate boy. Well, he may not recognize that person has feelings, and that person is very sensitive, and actually that person is very good and maybe very much even better than the father. Maybe very much better than the father. But people don't understand that their actions have consequences. That's all I'm saying. So your question is, what can you do if you offended somebody and not even knowing it? Well, what can you do? You don't know you've offended that person, but now that person wants nothing to do with you and says, every time you try to contact that person, the person finds an excuse to leave or hang up on you or not want to talk to you. Then you might understand, maybe I've done something to offend that person. And what can you do to correct the situation? Well, it's very difficult. to correct a situation that you didn't even know that you did, maybe unintentionally. And sometimes you may not be ever even, maybe you cannot correct that situation. What can I say? If you don't know what you did and the person's offended, and you might be able to say, like one time I said to a person, I was trying to be very nice to that person. And that person, what that person said to me was, said, why aren't you trying so hard to be nice to me when the situation is, I just don't like you. It's not that nothing that you've done. I just don't like you. I don't like the person that you are. I don't like you. One person once said that to me, but later, years later, that person was very affectionate towards me. And because even though that person said that to me, I tried to treat that person nicely. And over time, the person was happy with me. And, persons have told me the first time I met you, I really didn't like you. I mean, people have told me that. There may not be, you may not even know why. It might just be that the person finds that they don't like you. Maybe they think that, oh, Gaurachandra he came from a rich family, so he thinks like one of the member of the aristocracy, and he thinks that we're all common people. People may think, and it may not be true, but people may just be offended with you, that thinking, oh, that person, he has more, sometimes people will become offended just because you drive a nicer car than them. What can you do? Sometimes it may be something justified, that if you knew what it was, you could correct it, and maybe the situation is not correctable. Maybe the person just doesn't like you because of who you are. They think, oh, maybe they think that, oh, Gaurachandra, he's married to Falguni, and Falguni's very nice, so I don't like him. They're just envious, right?
Yes, well, my question is, my question is more like you were saying recently. I was listening one of your talks in Sokel about the appearance day of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and you were mentioning this particular case about knowing something, knowing some Sanskrit or whatever, and then by bad association, you go into Sahajicism and things like that. So it's a particular case. What I found
Something's wrong
so
with your
many
microphone.
so sorry. Can you listen well now?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was too far. You were giving this talking in Sokel about Bhakti Vinod Thakur disappearance, and you were saying about a particular case in which a person knowing so much or so little really became like a puff frog. Okay, so my question is that so many times, even without going that deep into nonsense, uh, we can do offenses, we can do nonsensical things without knowing. And of course, if we don't know, how do we fix it? Do I explain myself?
Yeah, but the example I gave was a little different, that the person became too much enamored by their own intelligence and then they became a Sahaja because they thought they knew more than their Gurudev.
Of course, but in a sense, that person doesn't see himself doing any mistake, and that's what I'm trying to get. So many times we read books for gurus. We read books
but your original words were about making offense, and I don't think that that's necessarily an example of a person making an offense. I think it's a person. I think it's an example of somebody, being It's not necessarily just that they made a big offense, but that person has not understood, what is Gaudiya, what is Vaishnavism. They have thought that they gave more importance to gyan, to knowledge, than they did to devotion. Whereas Rupa Goswami says, Anyabilashita shunyam jnana karmadi yanavrita manukuyena krishna nushilanam bhakti rutama. He says that one should be free of karma and gyan. Anukuyena krishna nushilanam, and one should endeavor to Anukuyena krishna nushilanam. One should endeavor to serve the Lord favorably and not become enamored by karma and gyan. So in that case, when I was talking about those particular persons, it was become that they gave more importance to knowledge, just gyan, than they did to devotion. And I felt that was the cause of their undoing. But that's my own personal opinion, that they became like gyanis, and they forgot what devotion is. I don't know if that's due to offense. I think it's due to misunderstanding of some basic truths about devotion. But, I don't know. I can't say that person committed an offense and that's what caused it. Maybe they became proud and they thought they knew more than their spiritual master, and certainly that is offensive. But the reason that they became like that is that they didn't understand about pure devotional service. There's that example of, letting weeds grow along with your devotional creeper. You're supposed to remove those weeds. And there's so many, you can find these weeds that are mentioned on the chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita that deals with the cleansing of the Gundicha temple. At the very end of that chapter, there's an explanation by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur of weeds that one should uproot. We're watering the plant of devotional service, that creeper. We talked about watering the creeper of devotional service. But along with the watering that, we have to uproot weeds that may grow along with the plant of devotional service. So some of those weeds are like violence to others and, diplomacy and so many other things that are mentioned there. In the explanation of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I believe it's at the end of the chapter of the cleansing of Gundicha Marjan, there's a very nice explanation there. But I wouldn't say it's due to just offenses. I think it's also due to allowing these unwanted weeds to grow along with their devotional creeper. Okay, my dandavats to everyone. I'll take your leave.
Dandavats, Maharaj.
Dandavat Shama Sundari and Dandavat Subhadra. Dandavat.
Dandavats,
Maharaj.
Dandavat. Dandavat.